Here we are, born to be kings. It's season 2, episode 7 of the Special Features podcast. Yeah! Here we belong. Walter Greatshell and Maximilian Greatshell, they are father and son. Ah!
I'm like one of those parrots.
Well, I was referencing, I think it's called a song called Masters of the Universe, Princes of the Universe.
Princes of the Universe.
By Queen.
Yes.
A song that was heavily featured in the movie Highlander.
That's
which
right.
is one of my favorite cheesy Asian.
One
of my favorite cheesy Asian movies. No, one of my favorite cheesy 80s sci-fi fantasy movies of all time.
It's fun.
It's a delight.
It is.
Aside from the incredible weird foreignness of the main actor, who's Belgian, though he plays a Scotsman, alongside 007.
Yes,
What's
Sean
his name?
Connery.
Sean Connery,
Yeah.
a real Scotsman. So it's super weird.
You know, it's funny to me because I've been thinking about, how your formative experience with that sort of action hero movie is Highlander.
Yeah.
And mine was Billy Jack. And
Billy Jack isn't fantasy or sci-fi. It's real.
Well, I mean, kind of.
It's more of a kung fu movie than anything.
It is. But
it's like a Native American kung fu movie.
Yeah, but it's still about this kind of like superhero who's like, defending this, this small group of people.
It's about, you know what it is? It's a Chuck Norris movie before Chuck Norris existed.
Yeah.
It's a movie about, I know you don't want to cut it down to that because it's a way better movie than anything Chuck Norris has ever been in.
Yeah.
But similar kind of thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's about like a good martial artist.
Yeah.
Who's defending a reservation essentially.
Yeah.
And the people whose asses he has to kick to protect them.
Sure. Yes. And all I know is that because the Queen song, from that movie. Oh my God!
The Queen song from that movie.
What's the name of the?
Queen was also did the music for Flash Gordon.
Yes, they did, and also another very fine soundtrack. The Queen song from Highlander is comparable to One Tin Soldier.
Oh, One Tin Soldier rides away. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Billy Jack song, and that had just as much effect on me as the Queen song does.
Yeah.
On you for that.
Although I would argue, it's a completely different animal. I don't think I got the feeling from watching Highlander that you get from watching Billy Jack.
Okay.
I think if
really?
I was going to compare your experience with Billy Jack to something that was like along the same lines as, like, I'd have to find something that was like dramatic and emotional for me.
Okay.
And like Highlander, I've never found particularly emotional. I just think it's awesome.
Okay.
Like watching Highlander for me is just like a lot of fun. It's like, oh my God, he's immortal.
Right. Okay.
He will, like, you know what I mean? It's just, It's cool. Clancy Brown's awesome in it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Watching Highlander for me, it's like when guys see a sports car guys who like cars see a sports car, they're like, that's awesome.
It's bitchin'.
Oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? That's how I feel about Highlander.
Okay.
Highlander is like my version of somebody watching like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The immortals will fight till the death to the end of time.
Right.
Like, but I do think as far as, even though it is fun in that way for me, it is a very well made schlocky movie.
Yeah.
Like it was designed to be fun, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
But if I was going to, like, I'd have to find like a really good action drama to compare Billy Jack to, because Billy Jack is much more of a real movie than Highlander. Not that Highlander isn't a real movie, but it's just a goofy movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Billy Jack is a very serious movie.
Yeah. I actually was always very surprised that Billy Jack wasn't remade. And in fact, at the height of Steven Seagal's career, I was thinking a good career move for him would have been to remake Billy Jack with him in the Billy Jack role.
Oh, you know what would be a good comparison for me for Billy Jack?
What?
The Road Warrior.
Well...
Because it's more serious. It's a lot more serious than like Highlander. And it's kind of about a guy like who's kind of like a crazy lone wolf protecting a group of people.
Yes, that's true. You're right. That is, I can see that.
Also, there's, sexual assault in both movies. So
yeah.
There you go.
Right.
We found a perfect comparison.
It's funny because...
That's what we should just... somebody's got to do like a literary analysis of like... not literary, but like a cinematic analysis of like all the movies that have sexual assault in them and like compare and contrast all of them.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when you say that, it suddenly makes me realize that that the first Mad Max movie, which was called Mad Max, I think came out maybe around the same time as the first Billy Jack movie, which was called Born Losers.
Yeah.
And it was about Billy Jack fighting this biker gang. And Mad Max is also about Mad Max fighting a biker gang.
See, those movies are run more parallel than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. There's definitely a parallel there.
Yeah.
But what's funny is in both cases, the sequels, the next movie in the series, were both far better than the first one. I mean, Mad Max the Road Warrior was way better than Mad Max in the same way that Billy Jack was much better than Born Losers.
Yeah, although Mad Max has some pretty great stuff in it.
It does.
I feel like
Mad
both
Max.
of the movies have a very different feeling to them.
Yeah.
Which is like Mad Max has much more of like this kind of like tragic, like loner drama feel. Like when you watch it, it's almost kind of sad because it's crazy and over the top, but it's like you're watching sort of like this character be like have to deal with the horrible consequences of the world that he lives in.
Absolutely.
Whereas
he loses everyone.
in the second movie, he's already lost everything. So it's like, you know what I mean? At that point, he's just like this badass rebel anti-hero that's like just trying to like, he's trying to get what he needs, but he's also like trying to help people out of convenience in some way. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because if I think
like
about
the Punisher also, if you think about it, because the same shit happens to the Punisher, doesn't it? Like his family gets like killed and then he becomes like a vigilante.
Right.
It's like a similar situation.
It is similar. But of course, the Punisher probably was influenced by something like Mad Max.
Oh, probably, yeah.
But I'm thinking it's interesting because in the Billy Jack story, I'm not sure that, I mean, like in the movie Billy Jack, the woman he loves is assaulted. But in the original Billy Jack, in Born Losers, I don't think he necessarily loses. Like you don't really get to know much of his story, but he's just some kind of war veteran. And, like whereas with Mad Max loses his family, that doesn't happen to Billy Jack. So you don't really know what Billy Jack's motives are, except he's kind of like this roving do-gooder.
Yeah. Well, my thought was always that he was just kind of like a loner.
Yeah.
And he sort of, okay, like I think about him like in terms of Worf from The Next Generation, okay?
Okay.
So Worf is this Klingon who's like, he has important Klingon cultural history that he cares about, but he's also a big part of like the human race.
Right.
So like, he's part of the Federation. He wants to work with them and help them, but he still feels very connected to his roots at the same time.
Right.
And Billy Jack, he's connected to his Native American roots.
Right.
But he also is like an individual and connected to like his own thing in his own way.
Yeah, well,
so,
and somehow he's like a martial arts master, because he was in the war or something like that.
Exactly. And Worf comes from some kind of royal line on Klingon. You know? So it's, I would argue that Billy Jack is a Klingon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I loved Billy Jack. Now, it's funny because I do remember as a child, I saw Born Losers. And when I saw Born Losers, I didn't know who Billy Jack was because he makes an appearance in that. But, Billy Jack, the movie, had not come out yet. Yeah. So nobody really, he just seemed like some kind of guy riding a motorcycle who's kind of cool. And kicks the asses of the bad guys.
He didn't have his like trademarks yet.
Yeah, he didn't have all of his trademarks yet. But I still liked that movie. I found it disturbing and in a good way.
Yeah.
But then when Billy Jack came out, I was a huge fan. I remember seeing that movie and like sitting through 2 showings in the movie theater or something like that.
Yeah.
And getting in trouble with my mother because she was supposed to meet me after the first showing, and I didn't come out because I was watching the movie a second time.
I do think it's distressing how many like incredibly famous movies, but especially like action movies, like have sexual assault in them.
I know.
And have like women victims in them.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of film history has turned women into victims.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a shame and kind of a part of the reason we have the culture we have now.
Yeah.
Which is why stuff like the Bechdel test exists.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
what's the she's a cartoonist.
But the test is that it's like you have a scene where there's like, I think it's 2 women in a room. Yeah. It might be more than that, but I think it's 2 women in a room and they're talking about something that's not a man.
Yes.
Or not related to men.
Yeah. But it was invented by Alison Bechdel, who's this cartoonist. She did this really
How do you think she would feel about Sex in the City? I feel like most of what those characters talk about is men and dating.
It's true, but there's probably plenty of scenes in those that it's just about the women.
That's true.
I don't really know.
Well, also, Sex in the City does tend to get very deep and into like the human side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like Sex in the City for that reason. I don't think that it's necessarily pandering to women in the way that some stuff does.
I agree, but could you argue that it's feminist filmmaking or feminist like television?
I think it's feminist in the sense that it tries to be honest about relationships and about people, people's sexuality.
And about the fact that people are the way that they are, and it's hard for people to like change who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there's a lot of people online who have argued that Carrie's kind of the villain of Sex in the City, which you could, I guess, say in some ways, because she does do some distasteful things.
Yeah.
And she does make some foolish choices. However, you could also argue she's just a victim of the person she is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the society she's grown up in.
Sure.
So as a result, she does the things she does because she knows who she is and what she wants.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, like let's say she treats that guy Aiden that she dates like crap, who's kind of like an outdoorist guy, but she doesn't really like, like camping and stuff.
Right.
So maybe she treats him a little like crap, but it's like, that's just because she wasn't into the stuff he was into. You know, it just is how it is. That happens.
I have always thought it'd be interesting to see something as well written as Sex in the City, but about women who are not wealthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Women who like have to work shitty jobs and,
that is true.
menial.
Those characters are pretty high-end livers.
Yeah.
Although you could argue some of them still have, it's not necessarily that they've come from money. They've still probably all come from some opportunity.
Yeah.
But like Miranda's a lawyer. Like, anybody can become a lawyer.
Yeah, but it's still...
Carrie's a columnist. Technically, anyone can become a columnist if they have the right opportunities.
Right. I'm just saying, telling a story from the point of view of a lot of people who are, working in the upper echelons of professional, work where they can, nobody's ever worried about money, essentially.
Well, that's another thing that's actually kind of terrible about the whole thing is like, Miranda's the only one that ever really has to struggle for money in that show as far as like the main characters go. Because like, I'm thinking about like Samantha owns her own PR company, which I mean, I'm sure she worked her way up into, but like, she owns a company basically.
Right.
Carrie marries Mr. Big, so she becomes like a billionaire. If he was a billionaire, at least a millionaire.
Right.
And Charlotte marries a lawyer and inherits like the townhouse of a rich guy who she originally married and then divorced or something.
Yeah, but I mean that's my point. The show
Miranda's the only one that like she's a lawyer, so she ends up having to like buy a house in like New Jersey or something with Steve because she can't afford to buy a big enough house in Manhattan to raise their kids.
Right. And I like that whole relationship with the Steve character because I feel like they're the closest thing to normal, people who are not, again, in the upper echelons.
I agree with you, though. There need to be different stories expressing different aspects and levels of life.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Wes Anderson, and that move first. That's one thing I like about his first movie, Bottle Rocket, is that you really get to see kind of people working at the lowest levels. And in fact, the character of the maid, who, what's his name, Wilson.
Which maid?
The Mexican maid that Luke Wilson is in love with.
Oh, yeah, the one that works at the motel.
Yeah.
They're saying it.
I mean, that to me is a slice of life that you don't normally get to see in most TV shows and movies.
Some random trust fund kid who's been in a mental asylum falling in love with somebody who doesn't speak his language.
Well, but forget the trust fund kid. I'm talking about the life of the maid. You kind of get to see her character and you see her, like her brother, and the way that they live. And
yeah, by the way, we're bringing this up because in the last episode we were talking about all of Wes Anderson's movies, and Bottle Rocket was a big part of that discussion.
Yeah, and I'm very fond, and I know you're not as into Bottle Rocket, but I've always been a fan.
No,
of
I
Bottle
like that.
Rocket.
I like that that arc in
Yeah.
Bottle Rocket, their relationship. I think it's very interesting and charming.
Yeah, and I think that it's also very, very, it's very real, and it's about a segment of society, and I'm not talking about Hispanics or anything like that. I'm talking about
it's a part of society
money-wise.
that's underrepresented in like that kind of media.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, people who have to work for a living and don't do anything that's like well compensated.
Yeah. No, I know, and that's also what's good. I mean, if you want to go off of that, there's a movie called The Florida Project.
Yeah.
Which is about like like a motel, like a cheap motel, like what, near Orlando or something.
Yeah.
That like a bunch of people who are desperate or down on their luck are living out of.
Yeah,
and so that's representation of those kind of stories too.
Absolutely, but again, that's one. There's very few movies that really go into that.
Yeah.
That strata of life, because I think for a lot of people,
some of the best movies do.
Yeah, some.
Like, what about Maria Full of Grace, Drug Mule?
Yeah.
What about that movie about the two Guatemalan kids making their way into America?
Right, and the El Norte.
Also, there's a number of like movies by Indian directors about like people who live on like, in like the, not necessarily the untouchable level of poverty in India, but definitely like a lower level of wealth.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, all the movies that are by, the Indian director, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to remember this guy's name. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's certainly with a lot of foreign films, they're showing the poorer side of life.
This is another thing that worries me a little bit about Wes Anderson. Is I agree with you. It's interesting that he's showcasing that element of life, but at the same time, it's almost like he's treating that element of life as a novelty. Mm-hmm. Like he's like, look in on this fun novelty of this section of life that somebody lives that you don't live.
Yeah, he's slumming.
It's like here's this poor Latin American. She wasn't Mexican. She was like
Guatemalan
Peruvian or something.
Okay.
But here's this like poor Latin American lady that's working as a maid in this hotel, and this guy who most of his experiences are from like being a rich kid, has never seen this side of life, and now he loves her. And like, and it's the same thing in like the Darjeeling Limited, like when they rescue those kids and one of them dies and they go to that kid's funeral in the little middle of nowhere Indian village. It's like, it's like, oh my God, look at how amazing and touching this experience is. Thank God we don't have to live here. You know what I mean? Like it's,
right.
It kind of gives off that feeling of like poverty tourism in some ways, which concerns me.
Well, and I think that is often, what movies that touch upon poverty will do, is that they'll have a character not from there kind of dropping in and visiting.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's we were talking about
fundamentally is the problem with like aid work and service work overseas too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like aid people who go to do foreign aid don't end up really helping very much, and they just kind of end up like, it's like, oh my God, I had such a powerful experience helping the indigenous people of blah 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 blah.
Right. Well, but I think on some level, I would actually say that that's kind of the point of that work. I mean, you're not necessarily trying to change the people that you're encountering. The idea is that they will change you, and you'll carry that experience back to your culture.
I mean, that's great and all, except for the fact that like that causes damage to those cultures.
Yeah, it can.
A foreign involvement takes things away from developing cultures, and in some ways makes it harder for them to develop, because they develop ideologies based on foreign cultures that are wrong, or because they're exploited for their resources. I mean, there's a lot of ways that interfering in a developing culture can damage it, and have damaged it, and have continuously damaged it. I mean, look at Africa. Africa could have been one of the most powerful continents on Earth, and it was largely like, it's been harassed for a long time.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about making too intense of pronouncements, because we don't know that much about the situation. I will agree with you. I think colonialism in Africa has been disastrous, but at the same time, it's not something that you and I necessarily have much experience with.
No, but we've researched a lot. I mean, don't undercut our experience too. Both of us have lived in developing cultures. Both of us have read a lot about developing cultures. Both of us have read about people's experiences with developing cultures.
Yeah.
And like, for example, Paul Theroux wrote a book called Dark Star Safari, where he traveled through Africa. And he is a person who had a lot of issue with the aid workers he met.
Yes.
Like, they were always super rude to him, never helpful. They were always like very difficult people.
Yeah.
Like, and so I can just take that as like one small example of a larger overarching problem.
Yeah, and absolutely. But I just think we got to be careful about, necessarily, like I say.
I want this podcast to be militant as hell.
Yes, let's do that.
No, I agree with you. But back to Wes Anderson. So we talked about Bottle Rocket. We talked about, you know, Rushmore.
Yes.
Like his earlier movies. But movies I've also watched recently, you know, some of his better known movies like Life Aquatic, which is basically the whole thing is a reference to Jacques Cousteau.
Yep.
And The Royal Tenenbaums is really good.
Yep.
You know, we watched Moonrise Kingdom again recently.
Yeah. In fact, I'd like to see that again. I've seen that one a few times, but it's a really fun movie.
The kids in that movie are fabulous.
Yeah, they're great.
I do not envy Wes Anderson having to direct them in that movie though, because some of the particularly one scene in that movie is so awkward that I would have personally felt weird about like directing kids to do it.
Yeah, well,
because there's the scene where like the two little kids are on the beach together and they're kind of having like a romantic beach getaway, but they're both like, they look like 10-year-olds. And they both like, they kiss and they like get partially undressed. And at one point, the boy talks about how he has a boner or something. He says like, it's hard. And the girl's like, I know, I like it or something. And I'm just like, I get it. It's supposed to be like funny and kind of like charming. And it's like, oh, they're little kids. Like they're just, they're both been lonely and they're just kind of experimenting with romance.
Yeah.
But it's like, I still, as like a big man, I would have felt weird directing a scene like that with children.
I might have too.
I mean, Wes Anderson, I know, is like a goofy little like fairyish fop. So like he, as like a little silly man, he's probably not as weird about things.
You know, but here's the thing. I actually have an issue with, like, I don't really like taking something like that out of context and like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like
you feel like it works in the movie.
It works in the movie.
And taking it out of context is going to scare people.
Yeah, because I've always been a fan of Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Okay, but he does this one thing where he's talking about the Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah.
And he takes what to me is like an incredibly powerful and strange scene at the end of the book, and he like talks about it as though it's this kind of ridiculous, hilarious, insane moment that makes no sense. And if you just take it out of context and you laugh about it,
it ruins it.
It ruins it, and people don't understand it. You have to have read that book to understand that.
Here's the difference, though. I agree with you that he's going about it the wrong way. You could talk about that scene without mocking it.
I don't think you could even really talk about it without reading the book.
Okay, my point is, I'm not saying anything bad about this scene.
I know you're not.
I like this scene. I think it works really well in the movie. I think the movie is a really good slice of life, and it has an incredibly nostalgic feel for what it is like to be like kind of a lonely, different type of child.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, just from an outside perspective, working on romantic scenes with children in general, I feel like I would feel a little uncomfortable with. And that doesn't just extend to that Wes Anderson scene. I mean, there's also like, because there have been directors in the past who have made situations between young actors awkward, despite the fact that the movies they produced were good.
Well, I mean, think about like
Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, well, or Taxi Driver, or The Exorcist. You know, these are all child actors being forced to deal with very sophisticated, disturbing content.
And my point is not that those aren't good scenes. My point is, I personally would feel uncomfortable directing them.
Right, but my issue is not about the discomfort. It's about taking one of those scenes, which the material, if you just describe it, could be sketchy, at least to some people. You know, there's people who are very oversensitive and terrified of anything that gets real.
Yeah, you don't. I get it. You don't want to send the wrong message.
Exactly. Because the thing like that is going to make some people like look for it. And then they're going to, look at all the books that are being banned right now because of like one scene or one line of dialogue.
You don't want to have people like universally pan something.
Exactly. I don't want some idiot puritanical jerk who's looking for things to like create a fuss about, like use anything we say as the grounds to condemn something.
Okay, but in fairness, even if we don't say stuff like that, they're going to find problems.
Yeah, but then it's not our fault.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Either way, just from a standpoint of like having to direct awkward stuff, I mean, like I think about like my college final project, the film project that I made called like WTF.
Yep.
And there were a couple scenes in that I was a little uncomfortable with.
Sure.
Because, obviously it involved
intimacy.
masturbation and like violations of privacy and one of the actors at one point had to slap one of the other actors, and that was a tough scene to direct.
Sure.
Just because I never directed a scene where somebody had to physically hit someone before.
Right.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge of directing, is that you have to break things. You have to set up this delicate
you have to break
little
your actors.
Yeah, well, not the actors, but you have to set up this delicate palace of the scenario. And then in order for anything interesting to happen, you have to tear parts of it down.
Yeah.
And I think there are people who are scared to do that. Like, you can always tell a movie where the director is too scared. He loves this thing he's created so much that he can't let anything bad happen because he's scared of breaking it.
Yeah.
And so as a result, nothing important happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. You do have to push limits and boundaries, and you have to. I mean, the important thing, I think, is just to be real.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times movies will shy away from reality because reality is often very shocking and uncomfortable.
Right.
But I feel like if you want movies to be realistic, they have to have moments that are shocking and uncomfortable, or moments that make sense to the movie. I think what's fascinating to me about that actually is sometimes the opposite is true. Because I think about do you remember Bo Burnham directed a movie called 8th Grade?
Yeah.
Which was about a girl's experience being an 8th grader.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good movie.
It was, but what's interesting about that movie to me is that movie doesn't have any cinematic implosions.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is that movie is so real to life, to just what an ordinary week would be like, essentially, that it almost avoids having any weird cinematic turns happen. You know what I mean? It just tells the story as it is.
Right.
And in that way, that movie's more realistic because it avoids too much chaos and conflict.
Sure.
Which is part of what makes it kind of great. I didn't really like that movie the first time I watched it, but I think it's because I wasn't prepared for what it was. I thought it was going to be more of a run-of-the-mill kind of look at the awkwardness of how it is to be in 8th grade and all this crazy stuff's going to happen.
Right.
But when I saw it, and now that I know what it is, it's actually a really interesting thought piece and a really original piece of filmmaking. It's almost documentary-like, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of going for that, I think.
And I think it's really cool for that. Because there's all these moments where stuff could happen. The girl in question is kind of awkward, and she gets invited to this girl's birthday party by this girl who doesn't really like her, but her mom invites her to be nice or something. And you think that's going to turn into some sort of horrible, awkward situation, but it doesn't really.
Right.
She
it's true.
meets the brother of this girl who doesn't like her, and they become kind of cute little friends. It's, you know what I mean? It's just real. It's not. There's no weird plotting.
Sure. And I think there's nothing wrong with having a movie that's just the charm of real life.
Yeah.
I think that's fine as long as it's well written, as long as the characters are interesting.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm saying. When you make a movie, it doesn't always have to be focused on the drama or the weird or over the top aspects of life. It can also just be focused on life.
Right. Well, and I certainly think that that's true.
Everyday life.
Right. But I think that that you can really see the difference in a situation like that between the filmmaker who is talented and has a talented writer and et cetera, talented actors, and the people who are doing stuff that's just gutless.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Hallmark type movies.
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's a lot of movies that are just made to not rub anyone the wrong way.
Well, yeah, the movie still has to be well written.
Yeah.
It still has to be a good movie.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
In fact, it's more important that it be a good movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Because I think there's people that will hear slice of life and they'll think oh, so my movie can be boring. And it's that's not true.
Right.
It has to still be interesting. And 8th grade is interesting.
Yeah.
Stuff happens in the movie. The scenarios are interesting, but it feels like you're watching somebody's life, but in a good way.
Yeah.
In a way that's not slow or boring.
Absolutely.
In a way that's entertaining and feels real.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It still has to be well written. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just mean whenever you're making movies about life, they don't always have to be about oh my God, it turns out dad's a pedophile.
No,
or like,
absolutely.
oh my God, we have to go and steal the Declaration of Independence,
No,
like,
for sure. I mean, obviously one of my favorite movies.
I feel like that'd be like a terrible, funny title for a movie. Oh my God, dad's a pedophile.
Right. Well,
It's the alternate title of Festin.
Yeah. Well, what you made me think of was actually one of my favorite movies, which is Happiness.
Yeah.
And
Happiness totally could have been titled, "Oh my God, dad's a pedophile."
Yeah, and I love that movie, and that movie has all of the shocking, horrifying things that that we're talking about.
That movie is specifically focuses on the disturbing elements of real life.
Exactly. And as such, I think it's great because it does that in a way that, is actually kind of, it's like, it's very darkly funny.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a disturbing movie. I think some people would be very upset by that movie. But if you care about good movies and you know the difference, I think a lot of people would like that movie. I know it's a filmmaker's movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But again, Eighth Grade is also perfectly legitimate. Or think about a movie like the early movies of what's his name? The guy who did oh my God.
The early movies of the guy who did.
Yeah, I know. It's so ridiculous.
Could literally name anyone right now.
Stranger Than Paradise.
Stranger Than Paradise. Okay.
Yeah. What's the name of the director? It's.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name right now either.
Anyway, his early films, Stranger Than Paradise and Down by Law.
Yeah. Because we were just talking about Ghost Dog and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He did Ghost Dog. I mean, his movies, his early films especially, the first few films he made.
Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah, Jim Jarmusch. Thank you. Very down to earth, very gritty, like little slices of life. Also,
but that's also why his movies take like time and reflection to really appreciate.
Yes.
Because like I've watched movies of his that I immediately connected with, but I've also watched movies of his that the first time I watched them I thought these are terrible, and then rewatched them a couple times and realized no, you just have to like get into them. You just have to like be patient and let them like wash over you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same thing, like we've talked about this with like some of the old Soviet movies too.
Yes.
Like Solaris.
Yeah.
Like Solaris on the outside seems like a very slow movie, or
Stalker.
Or Stalker.
Yeah, you're talking about Tarkovsky's movies.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you just let them like wash over you and you give them time and energy, you might get into them if you're the kind of person that can get into stuff like that.
Absolutely. And another filmmaker that is like that to me is Mike Leigh, the British filmmaker. He did, like Life is Sweet.
Yeah.
And, he does this kind of little slice of life British movies. And I think that, that's an art form that is, I think, one of the most difficult because it can be boring. Because there are movies that are really kind of about nothing. They're just about people living. But if you have like a very amusing script and dialogue and actors to do it, you can then have something there that is a really, very quiet, masterpiece, really.
Yeah.
These kind of low-budget little things.
Well, and one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of my favorite, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but like one of my favorite vampire movies is Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a Jim Jarmusch movie, and that is a very slow burn.
Yep.
Like, if you go into that movie, you cannot be thinking it's a vampire movie because you will be disappointed. You have to be thinking this is like if vampires existed in real life, this is kind of what it would be like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like very kind of like slow burn, kind of like sad and sweet and like, you know what I mean? They're all really well read and stuff. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a very almost literary movie about vampires. So if you go into it, but it does have great actors in it. It has Tilda Swinton. It has the guy that played Loki, Tom.
Yeah.
Is his name Hiddleston?
Hiddleston, yeah.
Yeah,
and Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, it has some recognizable faces, some great performances, but do not go in expecting it to be like from if you've been a person who's been living in this world for the past 50 years and seen everything that's been made about vampires, this is completely different.
Yeah, this is more like vampires as hipsters.
Yeah, exactly.
Sitting around their apartment, And
because of that, the first time I saw the movie, I was bored by it and I thought it was bad. But then I watched it again, and after I watched it like 2 or 3 times, I was like, oh my God, this is actually one of my favorite vampire/movies ever made.
Yeah. You know what that movie actually reminds me of? It has
the actor that played Winston in the 80s, 1984.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, John Hurt.
John Hurt, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. That movie, Only Lovers Left Alive, kind of reminds me in terms of its vibe a little bit of this earlier punk movie that kind of made a splash when I was a teenager. It was called Liquid Sky, and it was about these.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was about these aliens coming down and visiting this group of drugged out punk.
Yeah,
people.
I think at some point I've seen this movie. I just don't remember it very well.
It's actually a good movie. I mean, it's a strange movie. And it's very, very slow, but it's slow in the same way that Only Lovers Left Alive is slow.
Well, actually, funnily enough, one of the things I like about Only Lovers Left Alive, and this is really just kind of a fun side note. It doesn't have anything to do with because the movie's not a comedy. Mm-hmm. It's not. I mean, that's not true.
It has some comedy.
It's comedic, but it's also very dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's a people movie.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is funny about it is that in What We Do in the Shadows, the movie that Taika Waititi made, the vampire, which is a great vampire comedy if you've never seen it.
Yeah, I would completely recommend that.
Anyway, the movie was so famous and iconic, they made a television series out of it. And in the television series, there's a vampire high council that gets introduced in the first or second season or something. And one of the vampires on the high council is Tilda Swinton.
Right. And she's kind of playing that character from.
I know, but that's what's so funny to me is so obviously Taika or somebody involved in the production of the show likes Only Lovers Left Alive and was like, what recent iconic vampires can we put on the vampire council?
Right.
And they were like, Tilda Swinton not only is perfect because she does look like a vampire, but she's also been in this movie that probably the people that watch What We Do in the Shadows have not seen.
Right.
It's kind of funny.
It is.
But maybe they have seen it.
They might have. I don't know. It's funny because we were, talking in the last podcast or one of our recent podcasts, we were mentioning Gahan Wilson, and I was saying that he had written a vampire story, and I couldn't remember the name of the story, but I looked it up.
He talks about the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Yeah, the story is kind of based on the Walrus and the Carpenter. And the title of the story is oh man, and the sea was wet as wet can be. That's the name of the story.
Boy, we are not remembering stuff well today.
I know.
In fairness, it's a little warm in this room. It's been kind of a warm day.
Yeah, it's a little warm, and also I'm a little old. My brain's not working.
It's a little warm, and I'm a little old.
Yeah.
That sounds like a line Kurt Russell should be saying. It's a little warm and I'm a little old. Or Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
It's a little warm and I'm a little old.
Yeah. Speaking of Sam Elliott,
thanks, dude.
Yeah. Talking about the Coen brothers, and I was just thinking about Sam Elliott's character in The Big Lebowski. Yeah. I like him in The Big Lebowski.
You got any good sarsaparilla? Got Saskatoon City sarsaparilla. That's a good one.
Right.
Dude abides. I take that to heart. I also really like Sam Elliott's character in A Star Is Born.
Yeah,
I think he's one of the best parts of that movie.
I agree with you. Yeah.
It's so weird. I still want to watch some of because I know that movie is like a remake of a remake of a remake. And I want to watch there's a 70s A Star Is Born.
Yeah, there's actually been several.
I know, but I can't watch all of them.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking
you're talking about the Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, I kind of want to see the Chris Christopherson one.
Yeah.
Because I want to see Chris Christopherson be messy and drunk and crazy.
Yeah, it's a good version, I think.
But I also really like the recent version. I think Lady Gaga is perfect for that movie.
Yeah, she is. It's a good movie. I certainly have no quibble with that.
Unfortunately, it inspired one of the worst Joker movies ever made, which was the sequel to Joker.
Yeah, that
Joker
was a shame.
Folie à Deux.
Yeah, I was sorry to see that didn't work.
No, it was a mess.
I liked the first Joker because it was kind of a riff on one of my favorite Scorsese movies, which is The King of Comedy.
Yeah.
And,
no, I know.
Yeah.
I just felt anytime I see a movie like that, especially when it's a continuation of something that was really well done. It's just such a shame because I feel like Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix are such dedicated, talented people. It's almost like misusing them to put them in something like that.
Yeah.
Like like I would almost, if I was in that movie afterwards and I saw it, I would almost kind of be upset and angry at the people involved producing it, or writing it, or whoever was the most like reason for it existing. I'd be kind of pissed.
Yeah. No, I agree. But that's how I feel anytime a movie's, I feel mishandled.
Yeah, but it's worse when there's people in it who are like amazing.
Absolutely.
You know,
sure.
like.
Well, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I'm a big. What does Gaga call her fans? Like her little monsters.
No, I don't know.
I'm a big little monster.
Yeah.
I really like Lady Gaga. So does my fiance. You know, she's good as an actor. She's an amazing performer, an amazing songwriter. So it's just, you know, when I see her, I just want it to be good.
Yeah, well, but you know,
Joaquin Phoenix, obviously, I love everything he's been in.
Yeah,
too.
He's fantastic also. But you know, you just mentioned Chris Christopherson, or we just mentioned him, and it made me think of another movie that's kind of a disaster from the '70s, which was Heaven's Gate, which had Chris Christopherson, it had Christopher Walken, had this huge cast and a huge budget. And
was it about Heaven's Gate?
No, it was about it was a Western, and it was this enormous, expensive Western. And it was made by Michael Cimino, and it was made because The Deer Hunter had been a huge hit, his previous movie.
Yeah.
And The Deer Hunter was so huge that he had this basically free hand and an unlimited budget to make this Western that he had always wanted to make. So he makes this ridiculously epic Western, but it's terrible. I mean, it's just a terrible movie. The script is terrible. It's not good. And it has all these really great people. You just said John Hurt. It's got John Hurt in it.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it's a wonderful cast. And just to see those people in this terrible piece of junk, you know, I mean,
it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I wonder if us making this podcast where we talk about movies like this, and we're like, you know, I don't put up a lot of like visuals about the movies because it's just having to go through and collect all that. Like, I'd rather just make some like visual jokes and have some like some imagery in it.
Right. And well,
I keep thinking like, would we be better served if we just did like a vlog where we just like watched a movie and talked about it?
Well, I mean,
because I almost think like those are more popular forms of it. But then I also think like what we're doing here is interesting because it's like, if somebody really did take the time and listen to our podcast, the amount of like, you know, people love ingesting media.
Right.
So like the amount of like advice they could get about like, you know, what movies they might be interested in watching, or like random stuff they've never heard of, would be really interesting to somebody especially who hasn't been highly exposed to media, but who's interested in it.
Yeah. Well, the way I think about it is that, you know, people watch those Criterion Closet episodes online because they basically get to hear people recommending movies from the Criterion Closet.
Yeah. If only we had famous guest stars.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to necessarily do that. I mean, for one thing, everybody watching this has access to a computer, clearly.
Yeah.
And they could like immediately look up anything we mention, you know? And I think that hopefully, you know, if
well, here's my hope about it, okay? We regularly get like minimum like a couple 100 views on these videos, right? So like my hope is that at least one of those hundreds of views, at least one, hopefully more, but at least one person really actually watches the videos or listens to the podcast.
Absolutely, I would hope so, and I would hope that they would subscribe. You know, because you know that obviously would help
hit
us.
the bell and subscribe.
That's right. But mainly, it's. I mean, obviously, we enjoy talking about these things, and you know, I think that if other people have never heard of some of these movies we're mentioning, you know, if that gives,
you're right.
I just like thinking that somebody can get pleasure. You know, just like if I hear about a movie that I've never heard of before, it gives me joy to see it.
No, I agree with you. And ultimately, I think, you know, having a cult following is nice.
Absolutely.
I mean, because I'm thinking about like the Red Letter Media guys who kind of invented movie reviewing online, right? Like, they don't have as many followers as some of like the most gigantic channels on YouTube, but they still have like a life and a career based on their media, and like, you know, their audience. Maybe they have a more niche audience, but maybe they like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
Which I'm sure is like, if they heard me saying this, they'd probably be like, well, we wouldn't mind having a bigger audience.
Of course.
But I just mean like, there's something to be said for having a niche audience.
Yeah, and
didn't you say something about who's the guy that played Swan in Phantom of the Paradise?
Oh yeah.
We're never going to remember anyone's name.
Yeah.
Well, the guy that wrote the music for the Muppet movie.
Yeah.
He's this musician, and he's been heavily involved in the music industry for like a while, but like he has a specific audience of people who really love him still, and he still tours for them, and he seems like perfectly happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also he was on that Daft Punk. He like featured on a Daft Punk song from that Random Access Memories album.
Yep.
Touch was the song.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that he's got it right. I think that the idea, and I think I try to have it right. I mean, the reason I'm doing Paul Williams, thank you. Yeah, and he's great. Obviously, if you've never seen Phantom of the Paradise, which he wrote the songs for, you should totally do it.
Great movie.
It's a great little movie.
Kind of like a dark, dramatic, in some ways comical, but like definitely like very theatrical retelling of like Faust and Phantom of the Opera, and like it's a really great. If you like Rocky Horror Picture Show, this is like 100% a movie you should see.
Yeah,
because it's like it's an amazing, corny, campy, but also brilliantly made musical from like the 70s.
It's like the 70s. Yeah, 1978, I think. And what's interesting, or no, maybe 1974. But what's interesting about it is that it's directed by Brian De Palma. And De Palma was friends with George Lucas around that time. And the two of them used to bounce ideas off of each other. And in fact, that opening crawl, those paragraphs at the beginning of Star Wars, were actually like edited by Brian De Palma for Lucas. And what's interesting is that there's a character in Phantom of the Paradise who has a kind of a strong resemblance to Darth Vader. And I think that Lucas got that idea from Brian De Palma.
You're talking about the Phantom?
The Phantom, yeah.
Okay.
Because he's got the little voice box, and
but
he
he's
breathes.
Also kind of like owl looking.
Oh, okay, but you're talking about very specifics. I'm talking about he wears a helmet and a cape and black leather clothing and black gloves, and he's got like a little electronic voice box.
Well, if you want to hear something that's even more weird of a connection than that, so I've been reading an anime series, like a manga series recently. I'm not like huge into anime and manga, but people were talking about. I've heard people like talking about how great and classic this series is for a long time, called Berserk. And I'm not going to go into all the details of what Berserk is about. If you're interested in it, it's definitely very like R-rated, so it's not a kid's thing. But the weird thing about Berserk is there's one of the main characters in it is this guy named Griffith, who's like this kind of waifish looking, like he leads a warlord, like a band of like like soldiers of fortune, essentially.
Okay.
And he has armor. It's called the Band of the Hawk, is the group of soldiers he leads. And he has armor where the helmet looks exactly like the helmet that the Phantom in Phantom of the Paradise wears. Huh. And I looked into it, and the guy that wrote Berserk, that is a reference to Phantom of the Paradise.
That's pretty funny.
So the guy who wrote one of the most famous manga of all time references Phantom of the Paradise in his manga.
When was this manga created?
I don't remember, but I think it was after Phantom of the Paradise came out.
Okay, well, I mean, I would imagine, yeah.
I don't know exactly when the first volume of Berserk was published. That's actually something that might be worth looking up right now, because just to verify. I also don't know the first time you see Griffith's helmet, but I do think it's early on. Okay. Berserk first published. We need a guy like on those podcasts, like where Joe Rogan has like that Jamie guy that will just like pull stuff up in the background.
Yeah. You got to have like a producer.
Yeah. It started in 1989.
Okay, so Phantom of the Paradise was like 74.
Yeah, so it lines up.
Yeah.
So fucking Moira, the guy that wrote Berserk, one of the most famous manga series and longest running manga series of all time,
is referencing Phantom of the Paradise.
Knew about Phantom of the Paradise.
I wonder if Brian De Palma
and made it a major part of the visuals of his work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to know if Brian De Palma's aware of this. I suppose he must be.
It's wild. Let me show you. I'll put a picture of Griffith up for the people watching, and put it next to a picture of the Phantom, so that they're aware of this.
Okay.
But like Griffith also at one point, well, I don't want to give it away, but needless to say, he gets to a point where he can't take this helmet off.
Okay.
But let me show you.
Oh yeah, you're right. It looks just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, because they're called the Band of the Hawk, it's a hawk helmet. But like, do you get what I'm saying? This is a direct reference to Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's interesting, and especially it's interesting because, clearly Vader in a way was also based on this Phantom.
It just goes to show that even if you're like in Japan, media gets around. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Like, and Western media especially has always been a major influence on the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which actually, it's funny because that makes me think for some reason now of Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah. Because
the character of Hedwig is influenced by Western rock music.
Yeah.
In Germany as a child.
Right. Yeah, and that's another weird cult musical.
Yeah.
Like
that's another one of my favorites
too. And
yeah. Honestly, if you haven't seen any of these, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Phantom of the Paradise, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, even the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, which is great.
All of them are great one-off musicals.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I actually think those are all very impressive because there are so many bad musicals. Even very expensive musicals can be bad. Like, and I think that if somebody can make a musical where the songs are actually good, and it's like low budget, that's an achievement.
That's my ultimate dream.
Yeah,
my dream is I want to make. I don't know if like my life's goals are to necessarily make like a bunch of movies, but I ultimately, no matter what I'm doing, I would love at some point to be able to finance like a really good. And it doesn't have to be low budget, but like a really good, like whatever budget I can get, musical.
Sure.
Like I want to make a musical movie so bad.
Yeah, well,
which is why I want to do more like music videos and stuff. And I'll talk more about like where you guys can view my other content if you're interested in it.
Yeah.
Because I want to put more like songs out and stuff.
Yeah, well, you should. And, obviously that's a very high goal because it's hard to get right,
Yeah, of course. But like that's my dream. Yeah. Like I look at Rocky Horror, I look at Hedwig, I look at those things, and I think like, that's the kind of musical I would love to make. Something that's like really engaging and entertaining, where all of the songs are like really amazing and powerful.
Yep.
And like the whole thing is just this beautiful little like polished gem of a musical.
Yep.
Like, and yeah, they're a little quirky and goofy and over the top, but like I like that too. I like the colorfulness. I like the weirdness.
Absolutely. That makes it more fun.
Yeah. And I would argue even some of the most famous musicals, like real musicals, not that those aren't real, but you know what I mean? Like musicals that were written for like Broadway and stuff.
Sure, like Cabaret.
Still have quirky stuff that makes them more fun. Like, like Cabaret.
Yeah, West Side Story.
Or even Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd, which has a very dark color palette because it's a horror.
Yeah. Still
is very visually dynamic and fun to watch from a visual perspective.
Absolutely.
And very over the top. Like it turns that old grimy vision of London into like kind of almost like a weird little like puppet show, like in a fun way,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Or Les Miserables, which is also very visually dynamic in the good parts of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I think Les Miserables can get a little bit dry at times.
Well, I mean, the issue that I've always had with Les Mis is that the structure of it is the first half, all the music is original, and then the second half, all the music is kind of a rejiggering of the first half.
It's just reusing the same melodies.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like that's more of like a classical conductor thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like obviously when you listen to classical pieces, they will like rework the same melodies that were used earlier on in the piece to different effect in the later parts of the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's not as interesting as just having the whole thing be fresh.
I agree. But I mean, I think that could also ultimately come down to a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
Because I think people that are really invested in the technical side of music might differ in their opinion on that.
Yeah, well, and they're probably more knowledgeable than me for sure. So,
but
I can understand.
100% agree with you.
Yeah,
like I think, but I also think the first half of Les Mis is like the greatest musical ever written.
I agree with you. It's genius and really powerful and just fun.
Yeah, but that is definitely not the kind of musical I'm trying to write. I'm not a composer. I want something that's just dynamic and fun and interesting.
Right.
You know?
You'd be more in the pop music realm.
Or like a rock opera or like rap or like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
something I could write would be probably more along the lines of like, well, the things we already mentioned.
Yeah.
Or like I think about like Lin-Manuel, like he's written a lot of great songs, but he's not like a classically trained musician as far as I know.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm not saying I'm as good of a songwriter as Lin-Manuel. I'm just saying like, if I were to write something, I would probably have to write it in a similar way to how he writes stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, although he's more of a rhymesmith than I am. I think he has some of his experiences in like, you know, rap and stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely got a rap influence in there.
But I like rap as an art form too. I mean, like I feel like you can have elements of all different kinds of music and have something be more interesting and dynamic as a result.
It's just funny to me because when we were just in New York, our hotel was on Broadway, essentially. It wasn't on Broadway, but it was on one of the side streets in the Broadway district.
Yeah.
And so we had to walk by the theaters several times. And I noticed there was some musicals that I had not heard of before. Like there was a musical based on Death Becomes Her. And there was also a musical based on...
well, these days, like almost any movie they can get their hands on, they'll try to turn into a musical.
Absolutely.
Because there's not a lot of people writing... Because as you've said, it's really hard to write a good musical.
Right.
So, like, it's easier to adapt something than to write a new one.
Yeah, but the issue was that sometimes, you know, you would hear... They'd be playing the music, the songs, as you walked by. And I couldn't help but feel that, you know, there was a little bit too much of that Broadway style. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Like
where they're just kind of describing what's happening or like it's a little thin and glib.
Yeah, it just there's just very specific things that Broadway's, you know, music and
which that was the problem we talked about. We saw a clip from the American Psycho musical.
Yes.
And our issue with that was that like you watch, I don't even know how to really describe it, but basically it was exactly how you like picture the American Psycho musical right now, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
it was like you know, like in the morning I use an almond scrub to scrub my face. New York is my town, right. And they don't know that I want to kill them. Like it was like not good.
Yeah, and that's the issue that I think needs to desperately be like gotten away from is that these songs all have to fit this kind of weird Broadway template because that's what the audience wants to see.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if that's even true, that maybe the audience does expect to see that kind of thing.
Well, I think it's become easier to just spell things out because that's what people have been taught to expect, you know. But I do think it's a shame. And I think it's also a shame with American Psycho specifically because I think that book is interesting and has a lot of interesting stuff in it. I think the movie with Christian Bale is really good.
Uh-huh.
And I think if you were going to make a musical out of that, because it's 80s themed, you could do some really interesting, like, kind of almost like disturbing 80s like songs.
Yeah, in fact, it seems to me that considering how important vapid 80s pop is to that book and the movie.
Yeah.
Like, why did they not do that as the soundtrack?
Well, I think they were trying to, but I don't think they did it successfully. They just made it boring.
Yeah.
And like
But they also made it Broadway in that kind of...
I know.
You know what I'm saying? That silly way.
But that's what I'm saying. They should have just really just had like a band or like, I don't know, somebody who was intimately familiar with American Psycho and with 80s music and with horror to like write some really interesting dynamic songs for the situation.
Yeah, you know,
and songs that were like funny or songs that were like disturbing, songs that played to the emotional peaks of the show.
Well, get Phil Collins in there. You know, let him do the soundtrack or something. I mean, it just seems silly they didn't do that.
Just superimpose the Tarzan soundtrack over it.
Yeah.
Oh, stop your crying. It'll be all right.
Oddly enough, that would have been better than what they did do.
Yeah. That is a good soundtrack. That's the best part of that Tarzan movie. I mean, that movie overall is not the best Disney movie, and it's definitely a little bit like saccharine and twee, but it's still a good soundtrack.
Yeah. Anyway, it's funny because a movie that I really like that came out quite a while back, it has a parody of a Broadway musical in it. It's the movie's
the
called
tall man.
Yeah, the tall
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got
the
Jeff
Elephant Man, the musical.
Yeah, it's the movie The Tall Guy is about this tall guy played by Jeff Goldblum, and he gets a job as an actor for this musical version of The Elephant Man. And it's actually very funny. I mean,
it's a very broad. It's jokingly a Broadwayified version of the Elephant Man.
And it just plays upon all these corny Broadway tropes that would have been, that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that Broadway is still doing this. With things now.
No, I know, it never ends.
Yeah.
Well, that was why the John Mulaney show that he did with was it Nick Kroll, I think. He did a show called like Oh Hello on Broadway.
Yeah.
Where they had it was basically a podcast on Broadway.
Right.
But it was like they were playing these old ex-Broadway guys, and they made a lot of jokes about the stupid stuff on Broadway.
Right.
And that's why that was so popular.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing.
That's it.
They also had a different celebrity guest every episode. Every time they performed.
Okay.
The one that was filmed, I think their guest was like Steve Martin or somebody.
Okay.
But anyway, the elephant is very funny.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. There's a line from it specifically that's like, oh yeah, when they're first being introduced to the Elephant Man by the carnival barker,
right?
And they're like, take a deep breath, prepare for the worst. The ugliest man in the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when he's like dying at the end and flying up to heaven with the angel
Right.
wings.
Exactly.
Yeah, go look for The Tall Guy. It's a hard movie to find because it's kind of a niche movie, but if you can, great Jeff Goldblum comedy.
Yeah, it's great.
But we've run out of time again. And
All right.
We're over time, but thank you for joining us for this episode of the Special Features Podcast. We'll keep it running as long as we can or until the American government collapses.
Yes, let's hope not, but
all right.
We'll see.
Blessings to you, O Earth.
Bye! Jazz hands. Nice.
This is not gang signs, it's peace.
Peace.
Peace.